Welcome to Semper Fi. I'm your host, Staff Sergeant Bonstein, or as I was commonly referred to, Staff Sergeant B. I have a guest on the show today, but first we're going to do our ritual going through what happened in history. November 4th, this day in 1950, in the Marines, the 7th Marine Regiment, just north of Chiang Mai, near the Chosin Reservoir, destroyed the first tanks of the North Korea, the 44th Tank Regiment. Say that 3 times fast. In the Air Force in 1950, the 98th Bomber Squadron Group dropped B-29 Superfortress on the city of Northwest Korea. And in the Navy, 1971, the USS Jean SS Battalion 636 launched a Prism, having a good day today, C-3 missile in first surface launch of the Prism missiles. And that's all that happened today in history. That was quick. Quick note that Aviation Nation is coming to Nellis, November 13th and 14th. Anybody like to go? Last time we talked about it. Free admission and free parking. It will be over at Nellis. And without further ado, I'll introduce my guest, Brian Kunze, who was in the Army, who found out last week. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice being here.
Thank you. A little insight about you. You were in the Army. What year did you come in?
Actually, I was commissioned in 1980 when I went to college. I went to college on a 4-year Army ROTC scholarship.
Where'd you go to college at?
I went to Indiana University.
Okay.
So I was commissioned when I graduated from college, but then I was granted an educational delay to go to law school. And then when I graduated from law school in 1983, I went on active duty, United States Army JAG Corps, where I served active duty for 4 years.
And your first duty station was?
Actually, only one duty station.
Oh, really? You didn't get to?
No, I only did the one. And ironically enough, after I went to Indiana University, and then I came back to Sacramento for law school, since I was raised here in Nevada. And the Army, in their infinite wisdom, chose to send me to Fort Benjamin Harrison, which is in Indianapolis, Indiana. So I didn't get to see the world in my Army career.
How long is the schooling over there? They sent you to, is it?
Well, the schooling, the officer basic course for the JAG Corps is actually held at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville.
Okay.
It's actually have a really nice facility right next to the University of Virginia Law School. And I was in officer basic course for 3 months before I then went to Fort Benjamin Harrison. But it's one of those funny things where I was talking to my assignments officer pretty much right after I took the bar exam when we were supposed to find out what our duty assignment was. When he told me I was going to Fort Benjamin Harrison, I just kind of laughed going, and I says, really? And he says, well, wasn't that one of your choices? And I says, well, it wasn't one of my top choices. I just threw it on my wish list because it was a place that I knew, and I didn't want to go to some place like Fort Polk, which is in the middle of the swamps in Louisiana. So.
You always love those wish lists they always give us.
Yeah.
Your top 3 that you think you want to go to, and then they'll send you where we want you.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my experience with the assignment process in the Army.
How many years did you wind up serving?
I served 4 years on active duty, and then I was in the active reserves for another 2 years.
Okay.
I really wish I could have continued in the reserves, but what ended up happening was after I got off of active duty, I stayed there in Indianapolis. I think primarily that's where I went to college, and that's where my wife was from. So. I stayed there, but then after 2 years, I got convinced to move back to Reno, where I went to work for a law firm. And the problem I ran into was that the only JAG unit that I could have gotten involved in would have been the Presidio, which meant I would have had to basically commute to San Francisco to do my reserve duty. And unfortunately, I just really couldn't work that out because I really would have enjoyed staying in the reserves, but unfortunately I had to do that just because of the nature of my branch. There just aren't that many attorney slots in the Reserve Corps. So
I bet you stayed busy being a JAG officer, though.
I absolutely loved it. It was a great experience. And it's one of the things, when I talk to kids, and I like to, do a lot of speaking with kids in youth groups, and I certainly tout the experience you can get in the military. And I say, for me, going through ROTC, but they keep you busy. I spent 2 years as a trial defense attorney, which is another one of those interesting things in the Army, because I've always been more prosecution oriented. But like everything else, you don't necessarily get you don't you don't pick. But in all honesty, it was a phenomenal assignment. And quite frankly, I've been a prosecutor now for 16 years, and it's made me a better prosecutor because I know how to think like a defense attorney. And but yeah, we kept very busy. I mean, the jury trial experience I got was just unbelievable. I mean, literally, I was doing about a jury trial about every month, one a month.
Really?
And you don't start small. That's the other interesting thing about the Army. The very first trial I did as a defense attorney was a sexual assault trial.
They just throw you right in there with
which
the
is
wolves, right?
about as big as you can get, dealing with that, that type of a charge. And it was a bit nerve-wracking because, you kind of have this, feeling going, man, if I mess up, this guy could go to jail for the rest of his life. And if he doesn't deserve that, you don't want to be the one feeling like you're responsible for doing that. So,
While you were on active duty doing your defense, do you have any fun stories you could probably talk about without really getting gray line of?
Well,
a lot of times you got your confidentiality.
You always get your interesting issues, but just to me, I mean, one of the more amusing stories, kind of pick on you Marine Corps types. Where I was stationed was it's a training facility, and they actually have what's called the Defense Information School there. So we had soldiers and sailors from other branches there, and I had a young Marine get in trouble, and he's given what's called an Article 15, non-judicial punishment.
Right.
And obviously the military people know exactly what I'm talking about.
The UCMJ. Right?
Yeah. And one of the interesting things with the Article 15s is that the soldier actually has the right to turn it down and say that you're not going to accept that non-judicial punishment, and actually then go to a court-martial. And the thing is, and I don't even know why they were doing an Article 15, but it was really it was a bad charge. And so I'm trying to talk to this young Marine about his rights, because that's one of the things, they come into the defense attorneys and discuss their rights. And I just tell him, I says, look, honestly, I'm advising you to turn down this Article 15. I said, they cannot prove these charges. There is zero proof. And he goes, no, sir, I really need to accept responsibility for what I did. And I says, no, you don't understand. This is not the way our system works. We don't have to do anything. We can sit back, and the government has to prove their case. And I'm telling you, they have no proof of what was done.
Right.
I said, they cannot convict you of these charges. And I go through the whole thing is, if you take this Article 15, I mean, you can be reduced in grade. All the different types of punishments they can do with the restrictions. But the big thing, obviously, is losing your rank.
Yeah, and then forfeiture of all pay and restriction time.
And so, so I'm going through all that with him. I said, I'm telling you, just, you don't need to accept this. No, sir, I really need to accept responsibility for what I did. And literally after about 30 minutes, 45 minutes of trying to get through to that, no, you can forget about your Marine Corps brainwashing, and and finally I just literally had to kick him out of my office, and I said, fine, go take your Article 15 punishment.
You don't remember exactly what it was he did?
Oh, no,
no more?
I don't even. But it's actually one of the things, though, that I say it was kind of amusing because of just the attitude, but it's actually very honorable, which is
accepting responsibility.
Yeah, it's really something that and that's probably one of the strong points of the Corps, is that honor is very important, and he wasn't going to let some low life, attorney.
Bail them out.
tell him otherwise, and I guess that's the actually the beauty of the military, and unfortunately, we need more of those principles in our society today.
Yeah. I think the traditional system is what it is. I think we have the best one going, really. The funniest one was we had a colonel over in my old battalion in Camp Pendleton, and a sergeant went in there for office hours, and the colonel was holding office hours. And again, I can't really remember what the circumstances were. And his name was Jack Kelly, big Irishman from the Bronx back in New York. So sergeant's standing there, colonel gives him a parade rest, explains the charges, and the colonel turns around and says, "Let me make it simple." He says, "If I was standing there, you were sitting here," he goes, "what do you feel would be a just punishment?" All right, fair question. Sergeant turns around and says, "Well, sir, I think a reduction in rank to corporal, a forfeiture of pay of $500 for the next umpty frat days, and restriction." Colonel looks over at the sergeant major, goes, "I like that." He goes, "Well, that's what you get." So when the sergeant walked out of the office, we're standing there with the other line of people getting ready to go in. You look at the sergeant, goes, "So how is it?" And he goes, "I kind of reduced myself." He goes, "How do you get mad at the colonel when you impose?" I go, wait, what do you mean you impose? He goes, "Well, the colonel reversed roles." He goes, "He asked you, what would you do?" He said, "So I sentenced myself." So like I said, part of the UCMJ I think is kind of, Colonel had a good way with people with that, though. He was a very light colonel. He was something else. We're going to take a quick break. I know you got some more stories about this. So we're going to take a quick break, get a cup of coffee, come back and join us, and we'll hear some more of his court cases. We'll be right back.